All right, welcome everybody to our February 12th regular City Council meeting. And I'd like to respectfully acknowledge that the land on which you gather is the unceded territory of the Comox First Nation, the traditional keepers of this land. This week, I'm going to do one proclamation for Comox Valley Cupid Day that's going to happen on February 14th. And I'm going to bypass the whereases. There's about 4 or 5 of them, but suffice it to say, it's an amazing event. But I do hereby proclaim February 14th, 2025 in the city of Courtenay and encourage all residents to embrace the spirit of love, kindness, and community that makes this day so extraordinary. Today, let's continue to spread the joy, one smile at a time. And again, a big thank you to JD Ludlow, the flower man, for bringing together the Comox Valley Cupid Day this Friday. And you'll see a bus driving around with all sorts of flowers on it and such, and it should be a good time. With that, we'll move into introduction of late items. Okay, thanks for moving consideration. And all those in favor? Any opposed? And what?
Oh, sorry. Consideration. Sorry. Is it the panel or?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I'm not.
Okay. So, okay, you do not want to be on the record as being against it, so that's great. Fantastic. Thanks for that clarity. All right, and so that's the in-camera resolution that's on the screen, and that passed unanimously then, so that's good. And we'll move into adoption of minutes. Mr. Garbutt. I don't have a mouse. I can look at that.
Thank you. We did have a circulate email. I don't know if council is going to take action on that. The member isn't here.
Yeah, thanks for that, Mr. Garbutt. That was the motion from Councillor Jolicoeur on tariffs. So, so I'm not sure if anybody wanted to speak to that, or Mr. Garbutt. No. Yeah, Councillor Hillian.
What are we talking about, Mr. Mayor?
I believe an email went out to all of council from Councillor Jolicoeur regarding a motion. Councillor Jolicoeur is not here today, so again.
So is it considered another late item?
Yes.
So you want approval for a second late item to be placed on the agenda, is that correct?
I'm not asking for approval. Councillor Jolicoeur is asking for approval. But Ms. O'Connell can probably explain it better than I can.
Thank you very much. So as the mayor mentioned, Councillor Jolicoeur circulated a notice of motion to council for consideration of a late item on tonight's agenda. In Councillor Jolicoeur's absence to introduce or request council consider a late item, it would be up to other members of council to determine whether or not they would be willing to request council's consideration of a late item at this time.
And if that's not the case, then we can continue on. Councillor Morin.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I'm actually really confused as to the process here. I would prefer for this item to be discussed when Councillor Jolicoeur is here. So
Yeah.
I don't know how we do that, but
Yeah.
just don't have it. Okay.
Yep. We can just continue on. I don't think he was planning on not being here, so it's just the way it has played out. So, my recommendation was that he speak to councillors to make sure that there was somebody who would be able to speak on his behalf, but apparently that hasn't happened. So we'll continue on with our regularly scheduled adoption of minutes from February 29th. Would somebody like to move that? All right. Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing none, we'll take those as adopted from council. And we do have a delegation regional parks and trails strategic plan from Mark Harrison from the CVRD. the real CVRD, Comox Valley Regional District. And I'll turn on your microphone there. And welcome, Mark.
Thank you. Through the chair to the councillors, thank you very much for letting me be here. It's just for information only. I just want to present the Regional Parks and Trails strategic plan to you and just be open for questions. I believe that Kate from Lanark is on the line as well. I believe she was supposed to be in. Yeah, she is. And she's the one that drafted the plan. So in case there's any specific questions related to the plan itself, we can, she'll be there after my little short presentation to answer those questions if you like. And then before I get on, I do want to just acknowledge the contributions that Susie made to this plan. So I want to thank her very much for those contributions and for you to give up the staff time for her to contribute. So thanks. I do have a PowerPoint, I believe. Mind throwing that up? That would be wonderful. Thank you.
And you got the clicker.
I got the clicker.
Excellent.
So I just want to kind of go through a bit of the service history, just for awareness. And then I want to touch on what regional parks are. I think through a lot of the engagement that happened through the through the plan, there's some confusion about what regional parks are as opposed to community parks. So I just want to touch on that a little bit. And then I want to speak to the strategic plan highlights and then talk about next steps, and then I'll be open to questions. So in terms of the history, in 1971, we actually had a regional park service, and that was when we were under the umbrella of the Comox Strathcona Regional District at that time. So for 20 some odd years, we actually had a regional park service. We actually acquired a few parks under that service. So Seal Bay and Goose Spit and Mount Jeffrey were actually acquired under that service. In 1998, the service became dormant and we basically lost that regional parks function. Those parks that were acquired within the Comox Valley Regional District, because there were other parks that were acquired under that service that are now in the Strathcona Regional District, but those under the CVRD, the current CVRD, were then taken under the umbrella of the electoral area service, and it has been managed and funded through that service since that time. In December of 2020, the Comox Valley Regional District Board asked us to engage on a background study to look into a new regional park service. And that was really so that elected officials could make an informed decision on whether you wanted to have that service or not. Through that process, we engaged with each of the municipalities as well as the electoral area directors for feedback. We looked at what the existing community park service looks like today or at that time. And then we did an examination of other regional park services in BC to kind of come up with this potential framework for a regional park service. That framework was adopted and the service was established in September of 2022. Through that service establishment, that bylaw basically outlined the service, the participation, funding, and the governance. And the governance is a little bit interesting because it's made up of 9 members. So there's 3 members from this council that are on that Regional Parks and Trails Committee, which has delegated authority over the service. And there's 2 from Comox and 1 from Cumberland, and then each of the area directors sits on it. So there's 9 members in total. It's based on a per 10,000 population. There are specific voting rules established. So for any kind of acquisition, there needs to be 75% that are affirmative vote. So that's 7 of the existing 9. And then any other matters would be a 2/3 votes, which in that case would be 6 of the 9. So following that, after it was established, we then embarked on a strategic plan to make sure that we understood the direction and a vision for this park. What did we want this service to do? So through the strategic planning process, it was basically a 3-phase process. The first phase, we did the analysis and initial input. We got input from interest groups that were related to conservation and outdoor recreation. We reached out to each of the municipalities, the electoral areas, Comox First Nation, and we also had a working group that was made up of the parks managers from each of the municipalities and the CBRD to help kind of move the process along. From that, we ended up with some draft directions. Those draft directions were brought to the public for review in phase 2. From that, we ended up with a draft plan. That draft plan was reviewed by the RPTC and Comox First Nation, and we did some iterations back and forth. We ended up with a final draft plan that went back out to the public and to referrals for final feedback. And then we ended up with a final plan, which is where we are today, that got adopted recently. So what are regional parks? So if we look at the parkland spectrum, it basically shows this broad range of types of parks that we have within Canada. So we have national parks, we have provincial parks, we have regional parks, and we have community parks. So and that's kind of within the context of BC. So a little bit different province to province. But if we look at here, our provincial parks, they're usually larger in size. They have like a conservation, usually style focus. And on the other side of the spectrum, and well, I guess with the provincial parks, those are funded by everyone in the province. So, and then the other side of it is the community parks, which are kind of our municipal parks, our electoral area parks, and those are community style parks. Those are only funded by the residents in that specific jurisdiction. And they tend to be smaller in size, and they tend to be focused on that neighborhood. And the regional parks are kind of in this little bit of a middle between provincial parks and community parks. They kind of can have functions of conservation and environmental protection, but they can also provide opportunities for outdoor recreation. They end up being, sometimes they can be small, but they're generally larger than community parks and smaller than provincial parks. They are funded by everyone in the region, and they are supposed to be for regionally significant natural areas. So places where everyone in the region would go, rather than a community park, which is maybe smaller in size, where you have a playground and it's kind of more community oriented. So I think it's really important to understand that this service is meant to complement the existing services that we have. It's a distinct service, but it's meant to complement what we have already in place today. So some of the highlights, I want to just touch on the vision and then the goals, the objectives, and actions. You know, obviously it's a big document, so I don't have time to go through it all, but I do want to start with just the vision. So for thousands of years, the lands and the waters of the Comox Valley have supported the Coach Salish, the Kwakwa, and the Pentlash peoples. Our regional parks are the special natural landscapes of the Comox Valley that warrant ongoing conservation or protection. Our regional trails are the green-white connections between our communities that provide trails through natural surroundings and strengthen ecological and wildlife corridors. These places connect us with nature, with ourselves, and with each other. Here we are in harmony with the natural world, and our relationship to lands and waters is strengthened. Here, Indigenous rights and culture are honored. If we look at this kind of bullet form, this is how the plan is really outlined. We have a vision. That vision, it gives direction to the goals. Those goals give direction to objectives, and then the objectives inform kind of actions. So it's outside, kind of informing as we get into the more details, which is the action items. There are 6 major goals within the plan. So the first goal is to work together with Comox First Nation to plan and to manage. The second goal is to protect regionally significant natural areas. The third is to increase our environmental as well as our community connectivity. The fourth is to provide opportunities for nature-based recreation. The fifth is to strengthen our stewardship and community partnerships. And lastly, to manage in a proactive and sustainable manner. Although those 6 goals get filtered down and inform 12 objectives. I won't read them, but they're basically categorized. 6 of them are planning style objectives, and 6 of them are managing style objectives. Those objectives inform actions, of which we have 64 action items within the plan. So of those items, there is an implementation plan on how we're going to implement those 64 action items. And there's a short-term, medium-term, long-term plan on those items. The next steps now are to start to work on actually implementing the strategic plan. And the first major thing that we need to do is to develop a land acquisition strategy, which is what we are planning to do this year in 2025. So happy to answer any questions if there are any. And thanks again for the time.
Excellent. Thanks very much. Really appreciate the presentation and getting the information on it. I'll pass it over to Councillor Hilling.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks very much, Mark. Appreciate the work involved in this. Is there a way for the average citizen who may have a special area that they'd like to see developed and preserved as a regional park to influence the process, to talk to somebody about how to put their suggestions forward?
Yeah, I mean, they're welcome to reach out to myself, but a lot of that information was gathered through the strategic planning process. So we did get areas of interest. We didn't specify what those areas of interest are within the plan itself, but we did get actually very detailed information from the broad public on what areas are special to them. And we're going to be using that information as part of the land acquisition strategy to inform that strategy.
Thanks very much.
Excellent. And Councillor Moore.
Thanks, Mayor. Something else that might be useful information for folks is I've had a couple questions around some of the local areas that already sort of have a regional focus, like Seal Bay Park is one example, Goose Spit, and questioning why they're not brought into the regional park system. And my recollection going back to the creation of this was really to look at those acquiring land that, as you said, is significant in some way, and to give us a means to do that and to not roll in existing parks. I'm just wondering if there's any other detail that you can give around that, because I think there might be a bit of confusion, like isn't Seal Bay a regional park? And I think there's some rationale why we haven't gone that direction.
Yeah, thank you. I think in a lot of cases, I think Seal Bay kind of represents what a regional park could look like for our region. But really, we embarked on this service to try to add capacity to our region, because I think each of the municipalities, the electoral areas, I think we're all struggling for capacity within our park service. So the idea here with this service was to acquire and build out the service rather than bringing in existing parks to the service. But that doesn't mean that can't happen at some future date. If there could be protected areas out there that are maybe better managed under this regional park service than how they are being protected or managed right now. So maybe better housed in here. And that would be really all up to the Regional Parks and Trails Committee to decide whether those should be housed in this service or not. And any new park that gets added to that service would again need to meet that threshold of 75% approval within the Regional Parks and Trails Committee.
Thanks, Councillor Morin. And I guess one of the questions I have just as we're in financial planning season is kind of looking at the financial implications. You mentioned that there's like planning and all the strategic stuff that's going to happen in the land acquisition plan as well. And, and there's other things happening like Cumberland Forest Society and other entities out there that are doing land acquisitions for various reasons. But at this point, do you see some sort of plan of how that financial impact might happen?
Yeah, I think The financial impacts and the whole funding piece is really going to get determined through the land acquisition strategy. So until we actually know what it is that we want to buy and we can actually do the valuations on that to determine the costs associated with that, and then the strategies that we can use to maybe come forward with that, because obviously we're going to need partnerships. It's not going to be, we won't be able to just bear this on the back of the taxpayers. There's no question about that. But that financial piece is going to really have to be delivered to the land acquisition strategy until we actually know what it is that we want to purchase. Yeah, it's hard to say, but as it is right now, the service has been funding the strategic plan development, and it will then fund the development of the land acquisition strategy. I think last year I was 1.4 cents on per thousand. So I think each household was paying approximately $10 for the service.
Okay, no, and I really appreciate you pointing out that the partnership side of things, because yeah, there are lots of organizations doing things, so it's great to hear. I don't see any further questions, so I think that was great. Really appreciate your presentation today.
Thank you very much.
All right, and moving along, we have our business retention and expansion program update from the Chamber of Commerce, and we have Tracy Clark, the Executive Director, to present today.
Hello, Mayor and Council and staff. Appreciate you having me here. Tracy Clark, Executive Director of the Comox Valley Chamber of Commerce. And I'm here to present the results of our research poll that we conducted within the communities of Courtenay and Comox. The purpose of this plan is to support the long-term business growth in the Comox Valley by identifying challenges and opportunities for innovation. As you recall, last year I presented a 4-phase plan, and we've completed the first 2 phases up at the top here, and we're embarking on the second 2 phases near the bottom. How did we reach poll participants? There was a multitude of ways that we did so through our website, social media, email, directly handing them postcards, and some print and radio media. We also did business walks to directly engage with folks in person. And you can see some of those pieces right here, business walks with various mayor and council, and some of our news pieces, as well as the postcards. To develop the poll, we reached out to some key stakeholders in the business community of Courtenay and Comox. We hosted a workshop. There were about 13 participants, and we really wanted to hone in on the important pieces that we should be asking folks. From that workshop, there were 4 key pieces of feedback that we received. We needed to learn about market challenges. We needed to look at opportunities for growth and innovation, economic development in the region, as well as we were curious about advice for new businesses that may be thinking of moving to the Comox Valley. One of our first questions was just asking folks if they were already a member of the Chamber of Commerce, and quite a few of them were, so they are already aware of the business support that the Comox Valley Chamber of Commerce provides. And now let's learn more about the businesses that we talked to. A lot of them have a low number of employees, which is a very common thing provincially. And we also learned how long they were in operation for. So from this information, we realized that the strategies need to balance between startup initiatives and programs designed to help legacy businesses as well. The ownership structure, is any of this surprising to you? There's a range of ownership structure, and from this we learned that we need to tailor the programs to address specific requirements for all. There's a range of diversity represented in these businesses. And we also know that while there is diversity, we also need to play a role in promoting this as well by offering resources and workshops to support inclusive hiring practices, improving accessibility, and also improving cultural competency in the workplace. I was surprised to learn this piece of information. Most folks have full-time staff. So 51% of those that we polled are employing a full-time roster. This just shows how much businesses' revenue is. So from this, we learned that it's important to tailor financial programs. Some people need to learn about grants and funding, and some people need to learn how to scale their businesses. And the high revenue businesses also need support for expansion and innovation. We also learned that the primary market for business is local and regional, as shown here with the data. Now that we know about what type of businesses are here and how they're doing, we ask them what they need to learn. So what type of marketing tools are most effective for businesses? Social media came out on top, as well as websites and word of mouth. We know that the Comox Valley is a relationship-based community, and word of mouth is a great way folks are finding to promote their business. We also asked them what they need training in. So the previous slide tracks, they need to learn more about social media marketing. They're very curious about learning about applicable grants. There's also a curiosity about learning about artificial intelligence and how that can improve business efficiency, website development, maintenance, and you can see there's an appetite for many more training opportunities. Although some folks have adopted some technology, some folks haven't. So there's an appetite again for learning about digital marketing tools, and those would be used to target local and tourist markets. Again, another appetite for AI to improve business efficiency. And folks are really curious about point of sale system updates and learning how they can maximize their dollars that they're getting by having efficiency in point of sale. So we know what they want to learn. We were curious when they would want to learn that as well. There's a range here. So this demonstrates that we need to accommodate different schedules and different delivery modules as well. So we were curious about collaboration. The Comox Valley Chamber of Commerce is a big fan of collaboration. We think that together we're stronger. So we asked businesses what collaboration they'd be interested in. They are curious about networking with other businesses. That's one of the key strengths of the Chamber of Commerce. They were also interested in partnering for joint marketing campaigns. That's something that we could deliver together or coach them on doing. Group purchasing discounts. There's an opportunity for folks having an interest in that, and much more. So what are the challenges? What are the tough points for folks out there? The high cost of doing business, taxes, rent and energy, probably not a surprise for you, as well as workforce retention and recruitment, and just adapting to seasonal demand fluctuations. So these issues are all deeply interconnected, and housing affordability directly impacts workforce stability. So we know that this will need a multi-pronged approach, including advocacy for affordable housing, workforce development, and just looking at all sorts of ways to reduce the cost of doing business. So we heard that folks are interested in adopting technology, but we were curious what the barriers were for them. So a lot of them said that the cost of implementing this technology relative to their business revenue was a factor for them, as well as just not knowing what the right technology was for their business and not having the skills from there. So this is another place that we've identified for the Chamber to support folks with. As well, we're curious about sustainability. The chamber is a big fan of sustainability. We practice this in our office, and we were curious if folks were finding any barriers to adopt sustainability practice. A lot of folks were already adopting sustainability, but again, cost of implementing these practices was seen as a barrier. So we're curious how we can support that. And recruiting and retaining the workforce. So what are the challenges that people were seeing there? Just not finding enough skilled workers. Difficulty offering competitive wages where their staff could afford to live in the Comox Valley. And as well, you're probably not surprised to hear that there's transportation challenges getting to and from the workforce if you don't own a vehicle. There's a lot of optimism in the Comox Valley. A lot of folks are planning on keeping their business here and expanding. Very few were planning to close or move at this point. And this slide demonstrates that there is more optimism in the Comox Valley than we see provincially and nationally. 59% of our respondents were more optimistic for their business compared to the provincial level of 43.6% and nationally almost 50%. So we're feeling a little bit better about doing business in the Comox Valley, and the chamber wants to continue supporting that. We asked an open-ended question. What specific changes or improvement would they like to see with local governments or business support organizations to help them? And from there, we saw 6 key themes coming through very strongly. So people really are interested in streamlining the process and reducing bureaucracy. So what does that look like? Simplified processes, faster processes, permitting, licensing, zoning, just basically reducing red tape so we can work hand in hand on that. Folks also really interested in financial support and tax relief. They want to know where and how to find grants, tax incentives, and they're really curious if we can lower their property and commercial taxes. Improved infrastructure and safety was grouped as one. So several businesses expressed concern about safety and cleanliness in the downtown core, and also a strong desire for better public infrastructure, parking, accessible transit, and better security measures such as lighting and patrols. I know the city has done some work on that, so thank you for that, and we'll continue to advocate for that moving forward. Again, not a surprise that housing and social issues come up as a major concern. So solutions for homelessness as well as housing for staff. Workforce development and attraction. Again, we've talked about this a little bit previously. They need skilled workers and they're curious about foreign worker programs and workforce training. So we really need to provide them with some more resources on recruitment, employee benefits, and just basic workforce skills development. And lastly, growth in tourism. So the folks that we talked to were really looking for a more pro-business culture within the local governments, and they need some more support promoting tourism, signage, and developing downtown areas to attract locals and visitors. All right, I'm just going to pause here and let you read some of the direct quotes that we got from folks. And I'll move on. So how are we going to address all these concerns and needs? We have a few recommendations that the chamber is going to activate moving forward. So right away, we're coming out the gate with some hosting of shopping and eating local events. So collaborating on that regionally. We're also coming out the gate with some training and learning sessions on workforce development. We would appreciate having the opportunity to work with local government to streamline the regulatory processes that we heard about. And we really want to facilitate some innovative regional collaboration like we talked about earlier. So resource sharing And there's some other innovative ways that we can support business together. And finally, educational resources and workshops on technology development. We saw this theme coming up again and again. So the Chamber is going to tap into some experts and share that with folks. Just an example of some of the upcoming workshops that we're hosting. So we're launching a breakfast speaker series. We heard that folks would prefer to learn about things not in the middle of the workday. So bright and early, 7:30 to 9, bites and insights. We're going to be hosting that at the Chamber office. Folks can gather for breakfast, and we'll be rolling out a speaker series on the third Thursday of every month. And that will be focused on topics that we heard that people need to learn. As well, our annual economic outlook breakfast, strategies for a changing landscape. So we are bringing in Susan Mowbray, the chief economist from MNP, and she's going to provide an analysis of international trade policies and the political changes that are affecting our local economies as well. So we have an amazing panel who's going to present as well. We've got Tara Close, who's from the Faculty of Accounting at North Island College. We've got the BC Shellfish Growers Association represented. They're a key exporter locally, as well as Brady Countsy. He's an export advisor from Export Navigator. And the resources that we're going to be bringing to folks, we're making those accessible through our website. So we're developing an online resource library that's going to be populated with startup checklists, resource links, and webinar recordings. So we have produced these webinars in 2024. We've recorded these, and these will be available on our website. And any webinars that we produce in the future will also be available for free for folks to access on our website. There's also an opportunity for us to partner together with city staff and developing business startup checklists. So I'll look forward to discussing that further. Just to demonstrate some of the responsive support that we've done in 2024, we introduced a few new innovative ways to support businesses, such as our ribbon cutting, just to celebrate the opening of businesses and their milestone events, hosting workshops in our new Chamber Business Hub in downtown Courtenay. If you haven't visited us there yet, I invite you to pop in. And we hosted our inaugural Employer Symposium, which is sort of a sister event to our Economic Outlook Breakfast. But the Employer Symposium will focus on a different topic each year that's relevant to the workforce. Advocacy, and also another really important piece of what the Chamber does. So we bring together elected officials and local business. So the Chamber is a nonpartisan voice, and we act as a bridge for those two groups. The Chamber has a few strengths that make us an ideal partner for this work. So last year we hosted 29 events. In 2024, we saw 1,200 people through our door, and our events average an 80% attendance rate. We're also a community collaborator, like I mentioned. We often participate in regional strategy development, and we sit at the table with many nonprofit business and government groups. As we are registered under the Board of Trade Act, the Chamber must represent the interest of all businesses operating within our region, which is the entire Comox Valley. And this just ensures that we support everybody in the Comox Valley. We're not limited to a specific sector or an area, and we're also not limited to just supporting our members. And we have been a trusted part of the Comox Valley for 106 years this year. We started in 1919. We've touched on our advocacy piece, as well as being the trusted voice of business in the Comox Valley. And the response rate to this poll speaks to that. We had a pretty high response rate. So it shows that folks are willing to trust the Chamber with their education needs and their business support needs. Just a slide talking about how the regional nature of this BRE project provides strength for the entire region. It promotes economic resilience and inclusive growth throughout the entire region. And there's just a quote at the bottom from our open-ended questions, speaking in support of a regional BRE strategy. Again, the project budget, which we talked about last year, moving into 2025 and 2026 of our 3-year plan. This is shared between the town of Comox and the city of Courtenay. So Courtenay is 65% contribution for 2025 is just over 23,000. And for 2026, it's very close to that number. So 23,790 is your contribution to this project for 2026. Now, I've presented the results of our poll, but I would also ask if you have a couple more minutes to talk about a regional economic resilience plan in the face of coming tariffs. The chamber has developed a response plan. Do you mind if I continue? All right. Okay, so we have a few points, ways that we plan to respond to these coming tariffs. So we've already dropped a poll with our businesses just to find out who's affected and how. Right away, we need to mobilize consumers if the tariffs move forward. So starting a Love Local campaign, which also goes hand in hand with the plan that we already have with our BRE. We'd like to roll out a video series just showing the effects of tariffs on any local businesses, as well as producing a take action toolkit. So we'll provide templates for letters for the general public to do advocacy to various levels of government. So that's our plan for the general public. We also have a plan for business. So this includes outreach and story collection. The rapid response poll that I spoke of, that has been shared with city staff in all municipalities. So we're hoping to get as many responses as we can there to find out who's affected locally. And when we find out who's affected, we can tell their stories. So what are the effects on these businesses? Does it affect their pricing? Does it affect their operations or their employment? And also we'll be bringing in experts as we do to share a tariff response webinar series as needed. Municipal, local government. So this is where we can work together. So council briefings and resolutions that provide support. What we learn, we will share with you so that you'll have the data to support informed decision-making. And there's also a possibility to collaborate on some buy local campaigns. So moving outward, the provincial and federal levels, again, it's better when we collaborate and work together. So we will be lobbying for tariff impact mitigation funding. We will be encouraging interprovincial trade, barrier elimination, just to keep Canada stronger together. And as well, looking at ways to encourage folks to switch from US procurement to Canadian procurement if necessary. And then a coordinated national response with our other chambers across the country. Forming a chamber alliance on tariff response, again, collaborating on the interprovincial free trade strategy, and just to share data and best practices. So that's just a brief overview of a tariff response plan that the chamber would roll out as needed. And I'm open to any questions that you might have on our data that we've presented today.
Excellent. Thanks very much. Really appreciate all the work that you've done, as well as the business walks, which I know a few of us have done, as well as other council members from other municipalities, well, from, I guess, the town of Comox. And again, your action plan, I think, is a great step getting us there. Again, hopefully it's not needed, but given where we are right now, it's definitely something that's a bit of a challenge. One update though, when we did our business walk last week, I think the first thing I said is, hey, those cars out there have snow on there that look like they've been here for a while. I believe I've been told that those cars are not there now, or at least the snow has been removed, but I believe the cars are gone. Or have been moved. So those are one of the side benefits of going around and seeing what's happening in the community. And again, I think the engagement that we had with the businesses on 5th Street was pretty good. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Councillor McCollum.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation and coming tonight. I had a question around the data collection. There was a breakdown of some data as to like how the business operates, corporation, partnership, employees, revenue categories. But there was no slide that indicated the sectors like retail, professional services, construction. Did you collect any data on what, like what sectors the respondents were operating businesses in?
We do have that data, so I'll get that to you. Thanks for flagging that. Appreciate that.
Thanks. And I don't see anyone else has a light on, so oh, no, yeah. Okay,
We'll be super Canadian here.
okay. Yeah, my other question there, that slide around, what additional learnings or, resources that businesses would like to have a better understanding of, quite a few things around technology. And then you highlighted at the end, developing that resource page, which makes good sense. It's a nice connection and it's probably a good starting point for like a general overview, connecting with a video and trying to get some background on something. But is there an interest or, a thought to creating like some resources identifying like consultants in those fields that are that have been vetted, and like for businesses that actually want to take that next step in implementing something that they don't have any professional background in? Yeah, just wondering if there's a venue for the chamber to provide that kind of connection for business.
Yeah, you're full of great ideas tonight. You're hired. Thank you. So yeah, we will be bringing experts to the forefront in terms of like delivering these workshops, but I really like the idea of featuring a place where we can share vetted experts as well.
Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor McCollum and Councillor Hillian. Sorry, you've missed your.
Thanks, Mayor. It's interesting. I've lived in the community for a lot of years, and I know a lot of people who've started businesses and who've run successful ones, and others who've had challenges. And it used to be the common view that the banks would give you about 3 years to start showing a profit before they started putting the squeeze on you to pay up. And so you always saw small business failures. And I'm just wondering if there's if we're seeing any greater support from banking institutions with the financing of our business sector.
That's a good question, and that's a question that I'll have to dig deeper into and probably report back to you on that one.
Yeah, because I find it interesting that there's a request for grants and financial support, and of course to pay less taxes. We'd all like to pay less taxes, but at the same time, we get a large business with $260 million invested in the province of Alberta that says it's not a very pro-business climate out here, and I think that there's some contradictions in terms of get government off our back, except give us some money to help us carry on and don't make us pay much taxes. So of course, ideally, we'd like to strike a balance in between that and be as supportive to the business community as possible, while recognizing that unfortunately, the tax structure that we have means that Walmart and Costco pay taxes at the same rates as the very small mom and pop businesses that people are really having to scramble to supply. So I think it's really important for us to understand the diversity of the business community that your survey highlights. I hope that we can be as supportive as possible within the constraints that we operate under. So thanks very much for being here tonight.
Thank you so much, Councillor Hillian.
Thanks, Councillor Hillian. Appreciate that. And Councillor Cole-Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks, Tracy, so much for this. It was really, I really appreciate the speed with which you managed to pivot to addressing the tariffs. As I was going through the presentation I was reading before today, I thought these were all conducted in December and things will have changed since then. But just the comprehensive nature of what you're suggesting as a response to tariffs was really impressive. And I know I saw you last week on the call with our MP and our MLA and other local leaders, including Chamber of Commerce folks from across the North Island. So just want to say kudos for getting that together so quickly. And one of the items you had up there was videos explaining tariffs, and if when you finish producing them, you could ship them to the White House. That would be super, super helpful for people who don't realize how they actually work. And just as a final point, I was just really happy to note, and this was December, that that people were more optimistic about their business than the average Canadian by quite a big margin. And hopefully the strength of our community and people's sense that they were doing not badly before Trump's election will be enough to see us through. But anyway, appreciate all your effort, and I'm sure we'll be working together lots coming up.
Thank you, Councillor Cole Hamilton.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Cole Hamilton. And I think one thing that sometimes happens out of the light of media and stuff is when those tariffs came in place on Saturday, I was on the phone with our MP, contacting the MLA. Our city manager was talking to Tracy. So I mean, like those conversations were happening so quickly, so that by the time we even had that Zoom meeting on Wednesday, there'd already been iterative conversations there. And again, just huge kudos to everybody for basically going all hands on deck to really make sure that we are as prepared as possible for something that is somewhat unprecedented and hard to prepare for, almost like a pandemic, which we got to have the joy of dealing with that quite a few years ago. Councillor Moore.
Great, thanks, Mayor. I have a couple of questions. Hopefully, most people have spoken, so I can have a bit of latitude with those. Thanks, Tracy. Great work. Really, this is a really interesting project, and I don't think we've had anything like this in the last few years. So it's really good to get a read on things out there. So that was helpful. I think the first thing I wanted to talk about was the diversity of the workforce. I thought was really interesting. I don't think a few years ago we would have seen that at all. And when you're looking at 39% Indigenous peoples, that's 4 out of 10 staff. That's a pretty high number. 34% visible minorities, again, a pretty high number, and LGBTQ 21%. So I really appreciated the recognition that they're of businesses and the chamber as well, in terms of helping provide resources, in terms of providing training and DEI here is not it's not a dirty acronym as it is in the South right now. I just wondered, I know that this was for businesses, but I'm just wondering how much connection you've had with the immigrant welcome or the welcoming communities group. I know they've been doing a lot of surveys as well that probably would dovetail really well with your work in terms of what newcomers, as an example, are experiencing here, as well as folks who identify in ways that are more minority based. So that's my first question, I guess.
Yeah, they are one of our members, and we do communicate regularly with them, but this is a great idea to tap into some of their polls and see if there's any common threads or ways that we can support that community as well. Thank you.
We do have an anti-racism strategy in the work plan at some point. It might be delayed a bit, but I think that work is really important, because I know that welcoming communities did sadly have a fairly high number of folks who reported experiencing racism in the community. So I think all of that work for local businesses is really important. The other piece I just wanted to bring up, it's not a surprise to me because I've heard anecdotally from business owners, particularly tradespeople in the last while, around the affordable housing piece, which was number 4, the top 4 issues that folks are facing. So I'm hopeful that some of the initiatives that we're trying to get off the ground, both at the council level and regionally, will help with that, because it is something that is hugely important. And I think also having more housing in the downtown, which would help with that transportation issue. It'd be great to, I've had areas I've lived in where I've been able to walk to work, and it's awesome. So yeah, thanks so much. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to say about housing, but hopefully we'll be able to have some good I think this might be a Kyle word. I'm not sure if Kyle's here. Synergies, lots of synergies around housing, hopefully between the chamber and the local governments as a whole.
Thanks. I think as long as we consider parking when we build housing, I think that's a big factor, especially downtown.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank
Thanks
you,
very much.
Councillor.
I don't see any further questions, but again, really appreciate all the work that the chamber has done for over 100 years and really being relevant today. That's one of the challenges that a lot of organizations have is to staying relevant and pivoting, I think was the term I heard from one of the council members as well. When you have things like tariffs being thrown around. And really, lastly, I was just going to say, when you do have folks that are frustrated about things like taxes and stuff, as you noticed on the business walk, I'm more than happy to give people my business card to contact me directly, because that's how we can sit down and see if there are things that are unreasonable or things that maybe we haven't thought about. So please, if you have somebody who's choose that one in particular, give them my contact information, let them know that I'd be happy to talk to them. So
Appreciate that. Thank you. And I hope to be joined on some more business walks. Those don't expire. We'll be doing this project for the next couple of years. So it's always a great opportunity to get out and connect with folks and really hear directly from them what their experience is. So you're all invited and we can follow up through that, through email. Thank you.
fantastic. Thanks so much, Tracy. And with that, I don't know that we even have to do, it was a presentation, so we don't need to do anything. And we'll move on to our next presentation, which is Inspector Scott Mercer, who's going to give us our RCMP quarterly report. And I'll turn the microphone back on again. And thanks very much. Scott Mercer is our officer in charge for the Comox Valley Detachment.
Thank you, Worship and Council, for inviting me here. Am I heard? So yeah, my purpose today is to present the third quarterly report. So this is a time frame between October 1st, 2024 and December 31st, 2024. I have provided this report in advance, so I'll just kind of hit all the grace notes of it and then move to questions afterwards. So from this quarter, we basically compared 2024 to 2023, in which we saw a decrease in calls for service than the previous 4 years, almost a 800 call decrease, which was the average. Most common calls for service in 2024 was unwanted persons, check well-being, and traffic-related incidents. We saw a 51% increase in intrusion alarms, which was an 184 call difference from the previous year. We saw a 30% increase in missing persons, which was a 56 call difference from the previous year. Most common call locations were the Crown Isle Shopping Plaza, where we saw a 51% increase. Those mainly focused in on calls for service dealing with theft, disturbance, alarms, and unwanted persons. The Connect Warming Center had the most calls received, in which there statistically was no increase from the calls for service from the 2024 to 2023 years. However, the nature of calls were distinctively different in that we were seeing more calls being based on criminal in nature, such as assault, breach of conditions, theft, and theft-related complaints. The downtown area, we saw a slight decrease in the number of calls for service from 2024 to 2023, mainly in the areas of check well-being, unwanted persons, and disturbance. I don't have anything anecdotally that can speak to that, but I know that from the comparative those years, there was a difference in terms of police presence in those areas that mainly were attributed to the beat patrol programs that we instilled. We did see a 65% increase in drugs, mainly possession, from the 2023 year to the 2024 year. I can attribute that mainly due to the changes in decriminalization and the number of calls that we received for open use in public spaces. Violent crime, we saw a stagnant, almost it remained the same actually from the 2 years comparatively, but we saw a notable increase in certain types of offenses such as sex-related offenses and robberies. I think I've spoken to this previously, that the sex offenses that are being reported, they're not serial in nature. They're independent reports. The complainants that are providing some of these reports are similar complainants, but we investigate each sex-related offense separately, regardless if there are similarities or characteristics that might say that they're suggestive that they're the same, but reported independently nonetheless. So we saw a 23% increase in sex offenses, going from 64 calls for service to 79. We saw a 31% increase in robberies from 16 calls to 21 calls for service. Our homicide rate, we saw 2 reported from last year. One was attributed to the CBRD area and not actually to the city of Courtenay, in which there was 1 reported homicide last year that was investigated. Violent crime centered in densely populated areas like the downtown core area. But when we say, and East Courtenay as well, we saw a shift in the number of calls for service, as well as Crown Isle. But the Crown Isle area, we saw a decrease in that area, as well as in Mission Road. Property crime in 2024, the most common were mischief to property, shoplifting, and theft under. We did see a notable increase in arson activity, in which it was, I mean, it doesn't look great. It says 667% increase. That is from 3 calls for service to 23 from the previous year. Majority of those arsons were singular in the sense that they were either focused in on tree areas like in parks or in dumpsters. And I can speak to a recent one that we just actually have a person in custody in relation to one that happened in the downtown core area. So main areas for property crime are in the downtown area, as well as East Courtenay and West Courtenay. So basically the entire city is essentially what I'm reporting at this point. There's no significant change in the reporting patterns from the previous year. Drugs, there was a 56 file increase from the previous year, which is a 140% increase. But again, I attribute that to a change in the decriminalization and possession and public use. Traffic, there was a 31% decrease in traffic offenses from 23 to 24, mainly due to a reduction in the impaired motor vehicle files that we had. We're probably going to see a decrease in the amount of ticketable offenses, only for the fact that we are seeing a shift in the amount of resources that we have in our traffic section currently. But that's again attributed to long-term ODS that we're trying to work through right now. I'm happy to take any questions from council.
Excellent. Really appreciate the report. I'll probably start with the first question, which is used an acronym ODS.
Sorry, off-duty sick.
Perfect. Thank you. Appreciate that. And I'll pass it over to Councillor Hillian.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm just curious about the breakdown of assaults and the proportion that are actually stranger assaults versus, say, for example, domestics that take place between people who know each other within their own home and those types of circumstances. Do we have records that pertain to that?
Not here to present today, but I can provide that information to you, Councillor, as far as how many are either familial or domestic related assaults, as opposed to, say, like the stranger attacks that you're referring to.
Rough guess, 80% people who know each other?
I would say that the majority of offenses that we're investigating when it comes to assaults, the persons are known.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that. Appreciate it. And thanks for your continued good work of your crew out in the community. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hillian and Councillor Moore.
Great, thanks, Mayor. Thank you so much for the report. So do you think the decrease of calls over 800 calls for service, an 800 call decrease, do you see that as a blip, or do you see that as a positive trend?
I mean, I'm going to say it's a positive trend, but yeah, I don't have anything to,
It's pretty significant.
it is a significant drop for sure. I'd have to look into it. I wouldn't feel comfortable offering an
Mhm,
opinion on it at
mhm.
this particular point, because as you said, it's a large number. We do have people that don't report, that
Mhm.
find the system frustrating, that they, they would rather complain on social media than actually go on and contact the RCMP and have their person and have the police officer investigate. And those are individuals that have been frustrated by either the police system or the judicial system. So I can't say that that's attributed to 800 number, but
Yeah.
we do have a significant number of underreported events that occur throughout the communities, as well as the Comox First Nations as well.
Mhm. Yeah, and we know that sex offenses are underreported, so we see an increase there, which is probably even more worrisome than it indicates because we know that those are underreported. Um, the the two homicides, it's interesting. I don't recall a bunch of media attention about those. There was-
It predates my time.
Okay.
There is the one that happened in the CVRD. I believe that was a purported targeted attack in which persons thought they were going after an unhoused individual on one, and the other one, I believe, was a familial homicide
Right.
that occurred within the city here.
Right. Okay. Yeah, it's just a bit disturbing. Just one more quick question. I was trying to find it in my emails, but I know the Transition Society had sent out recently some information about a program that was going to make it easier for reporting, I believe, or it was going to um, I just recall in the email, and this sort of is behind some of the comments I've made, that there there were people who would be, I guess, identified as being kind of repeat offenders per se, because I know you said that there isn't a serial nature to those. So that email that I received about that program kind of was contradictory. Are you familiar with the program I'm talking about?
Is this the one that when it came to wanting to report anonymously, in
Yeah.
which they may have had, say, like a negative relationship with the police in the past, but yet they felt that they
Maybe.
still wanted to report it. My understanding is that this was attributable to the unhoused community in some respects. We're moving through those challenges and barriers. I've been able to participate in the conversation circle and to try and establish a relationship with the unhoused. I've explained that our position from a policing standpoint is we can't investigate complaints that are anonymous. We're really restrained as far as the rules when it comes to the judiciary. I mean, there has to be a victim. There has to be a victim that comes forward. We try and provide as much support as we can to talk to people that are reluctant to report a crime, to move through some of their challenges that they've had in the past, and to let them know that this is a supportive police agency that wants to help in some respect. And it comes down to just simple conversations, presenting yourself in a way that is approachable, which some people don't want to approach a person in uniform, right? We do have plainclothes people. Counselor, it's something that I'm really trying to work through with this community, because I do agree there is a sect or a portion of people that you represent that don't feel comfortable approaching the police. And, it's not for me to judge. All I can do is just try and extend that olive branch to work with them, to show that we're human at the end of the day and we want to help them through that. We want to hear their allegations, and we want to try and investigate on their behalf, right? It's just unfortunately when we get involved, it's sometimes the end result that people don't like, and it's tragic. I mean, I have an entire policing career where I have to be the one that tells the victim why it didn't go ahead of trial, right? And unfortunately, we get wrapped into that whole process, and it's frustrating. Yeah.
Mhm. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Moran and Councillor McCollum.
Yeah, thanks. Just two questions. The first one around the impaired operation of a motor vehicle. How do we normally identify those? Are those through roadblocks or what's normally the trigger for?
It could be a number of things. It could be, these speak to calls for service. They don't speak to the numbers of, say, like proactively members going out and self-generating and conducting traffic stops or doing roadblocks and that. So there's a portion of maybe this data that's not necessarily being represented fully in terms of the amount of contact that we're having with persons that are impaired. I know that this detachment, we get recognized annually from our concerted efforts to make the roadways safe by the amount of impaired drivers that we proactively pull off. We do get a large amount of complaints that people are calling in on impaired drivers, whether it's alcohol or drug. They don't necessarily translate into criminal code offenses, that they are provincial suspensions and such. But I do believe we're making an impact. This drop in numbers, I can't explain right now. And it's something that I think I need to ask my analyst as far as like, you know, is there any reasoning that we can offer? Because is it because, again, are people not reporting? I just don't have a firm answer on it right now, and I wouldn't want to guess.
Yeah, that you actually provided quite a bit of useful context there, though. I didn't put two and two together that was a call for service. So those are generated by the public, not through police action. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we are still doing that. And I'm happy to hear that our local detachments recognized for that, because it's really important. The other question I had was just around the courthouse calls.
Mm.
What's the typical reason that the RCMP are called to the courthouse? Is it because we're talking about the courthouse calling, not necessarily things are like, because Crown Isle or the east side of town, that's kind of more an area where we get calls, but I'm assuming that the courthouse is specifically from the operation of the courthouse itself.
Yeah,
Those calls?
that's a great point. I don't have a lot of information to provide on that specific thing. I know that when it comes to typically files that are associated with the courthouse, it's usually administrative offenses, such as fail to appear as at court. Courthouse complaints, generally they have sheriffs there that deal with anything that happens in-house security wise. So I don't know what the actual reasoning would be for the calls for service around specifically the courthouse, but it's something I can look into and get back to you on.
Yeah, that would be great. Maybe the next time that
Yeah.
we get an update. I was just wondering if it was related to perhaps the courthouse having more activity like in their operations rather than a change in how people are behaving near the courthouse.
Yeah.
It sounds like that is probably the
Nothing.
case.
I mean, I listen to the radio every day, and I've yet to hear any sort of request for assistance at the courthouse. So
Okay.
it's something that I need to look into to give you a better answer on.
Okay, yeah,
Yep.
thanks for that.
Thanks, Councillor McCollum. And yeah, the courthouse has been one of those anomalies for as long as I can recall, where it's just, you know, stuff is happening, but and sometimes it's not. It's just failure to appear and
Yeah.
all sorts of things that have to be recorded, but there's no actual activity, as it were. It's more of a paperwork kind of thing. So I appreciate that. And I just want to also just acknowledge, and I think I did this last time you presented to us, but just seeing you out in the community on a regular basis. I just saw you at the Citizens on Patrol AGM, which again, I like to give them some kudos for the work they do for people who want to have them come out. They now have a website set up and everything as well. And the conversation circle at the library on a Friday, I saw you there as well. And so just really appreciate you being out in the community and participating and really trying to draw people in to make sure they can trust the RCMP, which we all think they can, and really use the RCMP to its fullest potential. So really appreciate that. All right. And with that, I think your presentation is over. You can stay and watch the rest of the meeting if you don't have anything else.
Oh, I'm
planned.
going to make fun of fire here pretty quick. So.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Thanks again. With that, we'll move on to item 6.11, the liquor license application number 2404 at 957 Comox Road. And I'll pass it over to staff. Mr. Garbutt.
Thank you. Our newly arrived manager of development approvals, Jemaine Shealy, is going to speak to this. And I actually don't remember if Jemaine has been in front of council before. So new face for you. We're very happy she's joined our team.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Before you today is an application for liquor license. Council is asked to consider a resolution on the application, taking into account the public engagement results prior to making a resolution. This application is for a new business in the city, the Heritage House Pub, and the owners are in attendance tonight. The application is for a new liquor primary license at the location of 975 Comox Road. This is an area that's surrounded primarily by commercial development already. The business is within the commercial 2 zone and is in compliance with the zoning regulations there. Other things to note is in the absence of a liquor license policy, staff follow a de facto community engagement process. I also wanted to let you know that staff is working on a liquor license policy to provide more guidance in the future when applications come before you. For tonight, we use our standard practice in terms of engagement. That included both a mail out circulation as well as a 2-week notification on our website. The results of that, we received 17 comments from the public. 16 of those were in support of the application. 1 was opposed, citing traffic, lighting, and possible pedestrian volume as a concern. In addition to that, we were also provided a letter of support from the adjacent business, which is the IKEA dealership. I'll conclude there in case there's any questions. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks very much. And maybe I do see a light came on, so I'll pass it over to Councillor Hillian.
Thanks, Mayor. We've just had a presentation from the Chamber of Commerce talking about how we support business, and I'm just curious about whether there were any issues in the process leading up to this today. Of course, council plays a fairly minor role in this liquor license approval process. It's in many ways a bureaucratic hurdle that businesses have to go through, particularly for a location that's had a liquor license for various establishments for probably 40 years or more. So I'm just wondering if there's anything in the approval process that in staff's view could have been streamlined in terms of our increasing support for the business community.
Through the mayor to Councillor Hillian, thanks very much for the question. We are actually coming forward with a liquor licensing policy so that it'll be very straightforward what we're doing. Currently, it is really about following the provincial guidelines and going through that process. But I think having the liquor licensing policy that'll be coming before council will really streamline exactly what is going to be done, where we opt in and we'll opt out.
All right, thanks for that. And Councillor McCollum.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor, and thanks for the report. Yeah, I certainly have no concerns around this application. I'm happy to see a business going back into this location. My question was around the parking lot and the property line, and just on the site plan, it shows that a portion of the parking is on the other side of the property line, and I recall, I don't remember what from or when, but that the property adjacent is city owned, and I'm wondering if there is some arrangement there where we're leasing or licensing the portion of the parking that is not owned by that property.
To the mayor, to the councillor, thank you for identifying that. Very detailed way of acknowledging that in the report. So to address that concern, as you identified, is a portion of the parking area, which if you're referring to figure 2, would be the rear parking alignment there. That section is actually part of a city-owned property. So to address that, the city is entering into a license of occupation with the property owner. And they've been very cooperative with, agreeing to enter into that agreement. It provides both clarity for the business owner and an surety of being able to use that space, as well as mitigates any risks that may be associated with making that space available to customers.
Great, thanks for providing that clarity.
Thanks, Councillor McCollum and Councillor Moore.
Great, thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I know there's folks in the gallery who are connected with this business. They're probably happy to see on social media all the great raves they've been getting. We always like that. Council doesn't always tend to get those raves, so enjoy it while you can. I just wanted to ask about the hours of business. I don't have any issue with this application either. But it has come up in previous applications around maybe some inequity in terms of the hours that primarily pubs and liquor serving businesses. There's quite a discrepancy between businesses, and I note that this business is saying that they're going to be closed by 11, I think, Thursday to Saturday, and of course there's no residences nearby, so I don't see a huge issue. But is that something that's going to be kind of covered in this new policy so that there's a little bit more equity across the board?
Through the mayor to Council Warren. Yes, thanks for that question. Yes, those are some of the issues that we will look at when we do the policy, and even further. And staff has been attending the substance use committee and is looking at a further policy in regards to municipal alcohol policy, where those kind of things will also be addressed.
Great, thank you.
All right, Councillor Hillian.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation that council recommend the LCRB approve the application of the Heritage House Pub with the considerations as detailed in the recommendation.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. My only question was, do I get to kayak there? I remember doing that. And I see thumbs up. So, okay. So I don't know if you heard it here first, but I certainly heard it here first. So very excited about that. And with that, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And motion carries. All right. Thanks very much, Council, for that. And we'll move on to item 6.2.1, improving gender and menstrual equity in the city operated washrooms. And I'll pass it over to Mr. Garbutt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an important report that we've been working on. The author is Joanne Bays. She's not with us today. Our Director of Recreation, Culture and Community Services, Susie Saunders, is going to introduce this. And thanks for all the hard work on this.
Okay, thank you through the mayor to council. The report before you outlines.
You might still be muted. Just like a seance. Can you hear me now? Not yet.
Can you hear me?
Sometimes if you're using your headset one, you might have to push a button on it. And if you click the audio up arrow, go into the audio settings, you might find a setting in there that's.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Do you see when you're speaking, is it showing up on the microphone level that it can hear you? If you're in the audio settings. I was going to give it about 5 more seconds, I think, and then maybe.
Can you hear me now?
There's an option. If you called in to the Zoom phone number for the audio, that would work as well. And I do see we have our fire chief, so we can always take a string and a tin can or two and between here and there. So I believe in the Zoom link you got, there should have been the Canadian. phone numbers in there. I mean, maybe what we can do is move on to the next item, and then once you're either dialed in or you can see that little mic meter going, give us a heads up, and I'm sure you can text somebody in the room here, and we'll be laughing. You could probably even text me. But with that, maybe we'll move on to item 7.1, the Comox Valley Recreation Commission draft amenity cost contribution, and that's a letter. Mr. Garbutt, did you want to speak to it at all, or?
Yeah, I was assisting with something outside the room. We're having a communication challenge with
Yes.
Ms. Saunders. So thanks. Appreciate the referral. If council needs any direction or advice from us, it's important for us to be involved in this. This is a request from the CVRD for us to spend some staff time. We've been working on receiving referrals and the like to get things in front of council, and so this is a step in getting staff time there. And Ms. Saunders and I spoke about this specifically, and we would like to be involved should council give us that direction.
All right, sounds good. And the motion's been moved already. I believe it was seconded, and just making sure. Yeah. Did you get the second? Yeah. Okay. All right. With that, if there's no further questions or comments, I'll call the question. All those in favor, and motion carries. And I'm looking around to see if we think we've fixed the audio issue. Oh. Okay. Fair enough. Yep, let's move on to 8.1, air quality update, and I'll pass it over to staff. Janine Tazioli, I believe. Sorry, we're jumping ahead a little bit, so I appreciate staff bobbing and weaving as we need to here.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Pleased to present an air quality update for you this evening. I do have a presentation that accompanies the item, so hopefully we can get the slides up. And also joining me, if we can get our audio issue sorted, will be Nick Davey, Provincial Air Quality Meteorologist.
Excellent. So they should be on the Zoom.
Okay, he'll be joining the Zoom shortly.
Yeah. Sorry, we jumped ahead, right? So, all right.
So if we get the slides up, I'm happy to get started, or just.
Do you need the clicker? It's over on the podium. And Ed's got you on the PowerPoint, but then you can control it. Huh? We are jumping around now. So maybe there's another. Mr. Garbutt.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor and Council. It looks like we're not able to broadcast those slides. If you refer you to your eScribe agenda, the presentation I believe is attached. If Council could let me know. Ms. Tazioli, do you have your presentation that you can speak to? Our apologies, Council.
Yeah, happy to improvise.
And it is in our eScribe, so it's there.
Awesome. So a bit of background on this. It's the vision for the community to have clean and healthy air all year round for current and future generations. And the city of Courtenay enjoys good air quality except during winter evenings and times of wildfire smoke. So this has been a long-standing community concern, and fine particulate matter, also known as PM 2.5, is responsible for local air quality issues. Okay, we're getting a little bit closer to having our slides up. Thank you. We're on the second one. All right, so this is a summary of the actions that the city of Courtenay has taken to improve air quality. So we've installed purple air monitors in 9 locations in partnership with SD71. We've updated our bylaws, the Prevention of Public Nuisances bylaw number 2804. We've initiated a public education campaign that operated in winter 2023, fall and winter of last year, and is beginning again this winter in 2025. And we've collaborated regionally on the regional airshed protection strategy. So our community has been monitoring air quality in a couple of different ways. One is through the provincial monitoring station, and the other one is through Purple Air monitors. And you can see a summary of those differences in monitoring technology. So with the provincial monitoring station, the readings are updated hourly. We have one location at Courtenay Elementary School. It's led by scientists at the Ministry of Environment and Parks, which means that there's rigorous calibration and verification, which we can use to compare to the air quality objectives. And it's been a continuous source of data since 2011. Contrast that with our Purple Air monitors. They provide real-time readings at multiple monitoring locations. It's community-led, which there's little calibration and verification, which means that they can't be compared to the air quality objectives, but they can be evaluated to other monitors to get a relative comparison. And we have data that we've been collecting since 2023. So these are the graphs that are produced from the provincial monitoring data. Nick hasn't joined our call yet. I'm happy to speak to them. You can see here that in 2019, we started to see a downward trend. 2019 was the first year where we met the 24-hour objective for fine particulate matter, which is 25 micrograms per cubic meter. On the graph, you can also distinguish which components of that fine particulate matter are attributed to wildfires. So in yellow is the wildfire influence, in blue is local sources, and you can see that the local sources have a much higher contribution than wildfires. The absolute maximum that was measured is also indicated by that trend line above the bar graph. So this is really a good news story where we can see that the community has been experiencing a downward trend since 2017. We met the objectives in 2019, and we're consistently moving downward. So on the next slide,
Teamwork.
we're making it happen. So on the next slide is a summary of all the days where we exceeded the average guidelines. And so in 2023, our exceedances were due to wildfires only, where there was between 2 and 3 days. I think it's 2 days where we were above those air quality objectives. You can see that this is down from 2017. So this really does represent a good news story.
Just seeing if we can get Nick in. Nick's in. We just need to get his microphone turned on and his camera.
Sounds great.
Can you guys hear me all right?
Oh, look at, oh, there's Nick. Do you want to do a audio check, Nick?
Yeah, I think the audio is not working.
We can't hear you. There's nothing in here that would be.
So far, no luck with the audio. So on the next slide, we can see that the story is a little bit more nuanced. So in general, there is this positive trend. On average, our concentrations are lower when averaged over an entire year or an entire day. But you can see how the timing of the concentrations matters. So if we look at the month graph in the center here, the annual average is 8. And so during the summer months from April to October, we generally meet the air quality objectives and we experience good air quality, except for times of wildfire, which is seen as that little blip in August. which you might be able to see on your screens or hidden behind the menu. All right. Well, thanks for sticking with me, everybody. So you can see that there's on average an overall improvement, but it's nuanced because winter evenings remain as our largest concern. And you can see that in the monthly data where October to March, we far exceed that value. And then if we break it down a little bit closer, looking at the averages within a day, we can see that how it varies throughout time of day as well. So at 12 noon in the center of the day, air quality is quite good. And that matches the venting conditions of our atmosphere at that time. Whereas in the evenings, when we're prone to atmospheric inversions, any smoke that's released gets pushed down to the ground, and we can see those concentrations increase overnight. This also happens at a time where it's dark. Nobody can see the smoke, and so it often goes undetected, even though the intensity may be greater than that of a wildfire. So this really shows that nuanced picture where we can see that the evenings during the winter are our most challenging times when it comes to air quality. And then this is summarized on our last slide. So the key findings, as I said, we have an increase above the air quality objectives daily on winter evenings. Air quality is generally good on winter afternoons when the atmospheric venting conditions are good. Winter wood burning has a greater impact on local air quality because of its frequency compared to wildfire smoke that happens only occasionally during the summer. And a trend of improvement is continuing year over year in our community. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions for myself or Nick if he's able to answer with the audio. Thanks so much.
I think you're up for all the answers. So, but he can give thumbs up and thumbs down. So,
We'll see how much he likes my answers.
yeah, exactly. All right. Isn't technology great? Councillor McCollum.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. I sympathize with all the interruptions, but I was following along quite carefully. There's some really interesting information here. One question I had, just you kind of highlighted the difference between having, you know, a calibrated air quality monitor and then the system that we have that gives a sense of what the air quality is like around the community relative to the other air monitors. So two questions around that is, have the areas of concern changed over time as we've been mapping this and as we've started to see some improvements and some positive trends? And do we have a sense of how significant that lack of calibration is? Is it, you know, a rounding error or more significant than that?
Thanks for the questions, Councillor McCollum. So to your first question around the areas, I would say that the data that we are collecting has confirmed our suspicions. So prior to the purple air monitors, we had mobile monitoring that was done. And that mobile monitoring indicated that areas that have more wood stoves, so homes that are older, have a fireplace or two, generally had the highest impacts. And we're seeing that confirmed with our numerous purple air locations. So really depends on the number of homes with wood burning appliances in use at any given time. And there's quite a variation across the valley. To your second question about how much does the calibration make a difference or does it matter? Well, it really depends on how we are evaluating the data that comes out of the monitors. So we need to use the provincial air monitoring station when we're looking at comparing against the air quality objectives to really know if we're meeting the guidelines or not, and that improvement over time. The purple air monitors are sensitive to humidity, which means that the measurements are generally elevated. So they can't be directly compared to the air quality objectives. There are some maps that produce a correction factor, but it still doesn't account for the difference in measurement technology. So for that, I would say the purple air monitors are really good relative understanding. And we should use that to understand how concentrations vary over time and between different areas.
Yeah, that's helpful context. Thanks for that.
Excellent. And we've got Councillor Hillian.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm just curious, first of all, I'm really glad to see the downward trend. Thanks for demonstrating that. I'm curious what sort of response bylaw has had in terms of complaints related to poor burning practices and what we've been able to do to support people to improve that where it's an issue.
Great question, Councillor Hillian. From what I've heard, the response from bylaw has been fairly quiet. There's been a handful of complaints each year since we updated our prevention of public nuisances bylaw. And that has prompted conversations with residents who didn't realize that their smoke was having such an impact on their neighbors. So I think it's really been a catalyst for those conversations. And I would have to verify if there's been any charges pursued as a result of this.
All right, thanks for that. And Councillor Moore.
Great, thanks, Mayor. Thank you. I did read through the report, but you know, you're all always obviously much better explaining things. I know often people have a question around open burning or outdoor burning compared to wood stoves, and we often hear that it's not the wood stoves, it's the outdoor burning that's causing the problem. And I know it is broken down in the report, but I'm just wondering if you could give sort of a Reader's Digest version of that, because you do bring up wildfire and you bring up wood stoves, but not necessarily that outdoor burning that people obviously see. They see it up on the hill or something, and they think that that's contributing to the poor air quality.
Thanks for the question, Councillor Morin. And when we're looking at the data from these air monitors, it's important to realize that they just measure fine particulate matter. What we determine the sources based on our knowledge of wildfire and aerial photos. So that's how we differentiate wildfire influence from local sources. With the local sources, it is a combination of open burning plus wood burning appliances. But I think it's important to note the timing effect. So open burning generally doesn't occur overnight. Leaving fires unattended would have a large impact on our community. And so it's that pattern of the timing where we see the increases that really is the evidence that this is wood burning appliances. But open burning is a source of fine particulate matter. And although there's an open burning ban in the city, I know that is a concern for folks in the regional district areas. And so there is an opportunity to improve that with, vegetation management programs and things like that.
Yeah, and I mean, as people point out, I mean, it knows no boundaries, right? You're still impacted if there's a burn happening, just a short distance away that's in a slightly more rural area. Thank you.
If I may build on that point, one of the things that really indicates the impact of smoke on our community is the atmospheric condition at the time of burning. So the province does have a venting index, and they have some regulations that allow burning during times of good venting, often when it's sunny out and you can see the plumes go straight up, whereas when there's an inversion, that smoke really stays close to the ground.
Yeah, thanks for that. And I know when we were first getting into this 10 or so years ago, you could see photos that were just so emblematic of the challenge. As somebody who suffers from asthma, I mean, and I always say lightly suffers from it compared to some people who have that, plus all sorts of other breathing challenges, and that smoke can certainly be extremely impactful. So really glad to see all this extra data coming around. Mr. Garbutt.
Thank you, through the mayor to council. This has been a very high priority for council. We have stepped forward. We've regulated, continued to do outreach, et cetera. So the shared airshed is very challenging. And I know that we've been speaking around that. The council has written to jurisdictions that don't have controls on open burning and backyard burning, and that still remains an item that's up in the air. There are provincial regulations there. There is a responsibility with the through the RAPP line to address those issues when people burn outside those things. However, regionally, this has been identified as a significant issue, and it remains one that we're not yet unified in regulatory response. So just offer that for council's information. Obviously no action because that's not within our sphere of authority.
All right, all those in favor? And that motion carries. And we'll move on to the Courtenay Fire Department Annual Report 2024. And I'm extremely confident that whoa. Or not. Okay. Chief McDonald. Give it a sec. I think that's you. There we go.
Thank you very much. So this is the 2024 annual report for the Courtenay Fire Department. The Courtenay Fire Department is a composite fire department that combines full-time staff and paid-on-call volunteers to provide fire and rescue services to the residents of the city of Courtenay and the Courtenay Fire Protection District. The department currently consists of 8 full-time staff, 55 paid-on-call volunteers, and 11 recruits. This blended staffing model ensures a prompt and effective emergency response while maintaining a strong community connection and offering a cost-effective alternative to other staffing plans used in the fire service industry. Our department responded to 1,395 calls for service in 2024, which is a slight decrease from the 1,455 responses recorded in 2023. This decline can largely be attributed to a reduction in medical assistance requests from the BC Emergency Health Services, with our calls dropping from 185 in 2023 to 139 in 2024. Of the total incidents in the past year, 928 occurred west of the Courtenay River and 467 east. This geographic trend has remained largely unchanged for most of the past 20 years, meaning we generally have most of our calls on the west side of town. Over the past year, the Courtenay Fire Department responded to a variety of emergencies, with open burning complaints leading at 379 calls. Fire alarm activations were the second most common response at 342, followed by 164 motor vehicle incidents in third. Other notable incidents included 139 ambulance assists, 116 public service calls, 59 structure fires, 59 utility-related emergencies, 26 garbage container fires, 18 vehicle fires, and then we have our other category, which had 93, and those are calls ranging from rope rescue, water rescue, elevator rescues, RCMP assists, airplane incidents, etc. In 2024, we had a very active fire prevention and public safety season. A total of 1,801 fire inspections were conducted to ensure fire code compliance and enhance community safety. Additionally, firefighters participated in 181 public safety events, including 17 school presentations, 57 adult fire safety sessions, 38 neighborhood emergency program, preparedness program, and fire smart presentations, and 69 smoke alarm checks. The department also completed 280 fire reports in accordance with provincial regulations, contributing to data-driven fire prevention efforts being made by the Office of the Fire Commissioner. Over 4,000 hours were dedicated to training in key areas such as fire suppression, confined space rescue, swift water rescue, and first responder medical care. This extensive training allows us to continue to meet the BC Structure Firefighter minimum training standards, full service designation, ensuring our firefighters are equipped to perform advanced structural firefighting operations, including interior fire attacks and search and rescue in hazardous conditions. The Regional Emergency Program was activated for 21 days in 2024 to provide warming and cooling services in response to extreme weather conditions. The fire department also responded to a localized flood emergency, ensuring community safety and mitigating impacts. Notably, there were no requests for wildfire assistance this year from the province, which was indicating a lower demand to protect structures during this last wildfire season. And finally, for strategic priorities, we continue to work on the design of the East Courtenay Fire Hall. We completed our SCBA replacement project and continue to develop our long-term staffing plan. And with that, that brings to the conclusion our report for 2024. Happy to answer any questions.
Thanks very much. Appreciate the report. And Councillor Cole-Hamilton.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Kurt, for the report. I just wanted to ask a bit more about the overall decrease in number of calls for service. You said that was largely attributable to fewer health-related calls. Is that because BC ambulances in any way increased their capacity, or does the fact that they're not calling on you as often indicate that the overall number of situations is decreasing?
I don't have any stats that are going to provide like a definitive reduction.
Okay.
I can say that it's part of its luck. Generally, when we get called out, it's because all the ambulances are tied up doing another call and they're starting to stack up. So they call us out to assist with the backlog. Part of that was luck that there might not have been as many of those situations in 2024. I've got no way of checking those stats to find that out. I will say that we didn't have as many responses to a lone responder, which is an ambulance that only has one person responding in it. There were fewer of those in 2024 than there were in 23. It also felt like there was fewer calls to assist ambulance with checking on people that were reported to be in some form of distress, sitting on a park bench or laying in a flower bed. We didn't have as many of those this year. Whether that was just because people had stopped calling them in, less instances, people being less out of the way when they're using substances, I don't know. Those were two areas where I could say that we did have the reduction that did play a part in us dropping from whatever 180 plus to the 139 that we were at this year.
Okay, I understand it's a single data point, so it's hard to project the trend, but it certainly is encouraging and bears,
Yeah, it was definitely a welcome relief because the way things were going, obviously we've been talking about it here a few times through my reports that it was starting to wear on the volunteers. So it was nice to get that reprieve. In terms of the other calls, car accidents were down a bit, alarms activated were up a bit. Nothing really was as profound as the reduction in the medical calls that we experienced this year.
Would you say that you're noticing that among the sort of the mood of the volunteers, that they're feeling less pressed with the number of calls for service? Or is that perhaps too early to make that kind of general?
Little early, I will say. There have been some, there's a lot of excitement in the hall right now, and just people seem to be very happy to be there. For example, we just had an alarms call at Vanya yesterday in the middle of the afternoon, and we had enough for 3 trucks of firefighters to go and respond to it because there actually was smoke in the school. So the fact that people were willing to leave their families, leave work, leave whatever to come down there and have that type of response at noon on a weekday was something that really is commendable and shows the dedication of the volunteers for sure.
Totally commendable. Anyway, thank you for your service and your crews over the course of the year.
Excellent. And I think the only comment or maybe question that I had is I know when we've talked with BIA members and chamber members, especially in the downtown core, one of the things that has come up is the fires in alleyways, et cetera. And I know before we did a downtown meeting a couple of years ago, you had gone around and kind of inspected the back alleys, as it were, for fuel sources. And I wondered if that's something that happens on a regular basis or not, if you could comment on that.
Our fire prevention team, when they're out and about, well, basically it doesn't have to be just to the downtown core. They do it everywhere. Doesn't matter, east, west, what have you. They will make note of accumulations of combustibles, and they will go in and talk with the business owner, property manager, what have you, to try to get that sorted out. But it is, up and down. Some weeks are better than others. It depends, shipment of whatever comes in, more cardboard than expected, dumpsters full. There's a lot of mitigating factors, but yeah, our inspectors, it is something that we keep an eye on for sure.
Fantastic. Yeah, again, just another kudos to know that that's actually proactive, getting out there, making sure that we're keeping our community as safe as possible. So really appreciate that. And thank you. Thank you. And it's just for receipt, so we'll just assume that's received unanimously. Thank you very much, Chief McDonald. And we'll move on to our downtown vitalization local area plan phase 1 update. Mr. Garbutt.
Thank you. Through the mayor and council, our manager of long range planning, Nancy Goddard, will give an overview of this project, and we're all very excited that this is moving forward.
All right, good evening. Before council is a briefing note on the update of the downtown vitalization local area plan process and then the next steps. The project is structured into 3 phases. Phase 1 includes the researching and establishing planning context and design foundations through internal staff workshops, interviews, and original working group members from the 2016 Downtown Playbook, and working with the consulting team, Acoustics and Modus. This phase has now concluded, and key deliverables from this stage include a SWOT, which is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats document, a what we heard report from the interviews, and the launch of the engagement webpage on Engage Comox Valley. The briefing note includes these deliverables, and some highlights from this phase of work include the identification of 4 planning districts within the plan area to allow for focused and contextual planning exercises within each district as the work continues. And then the SWOT analysis has been conducted for each of those districts. And just to confirm, these districts are the high activity hub of the downtown commercial and mixed use core as the anchor to the downtown, informed by key and historically significant lands and waters of the Courtenay riverfront to the east, the Fitzgerald Avenue corridor on the edge of the core to the west, a transitional area, and Harmston Park neighborhood beyond, including industrial employment generators, significant municipal lands, public parkland, and established residences. Another deliverable from this phase is the working group interest holder interviews. So the project team conducted 1-hour interviews with each, the DCBIA, the Chamber of Commerce, who was here earlier, 2 significant property owners, and a group interview with the cultural service providers. A summary of the key interview findings are in the attachment 3 and offer a range of planning principles as well as very specific ideas to inform the next steps of the process. Some highlights I'll touch on are ideas for the cultural district as a focal point, gateway, and character interface with Old Orchard Heritage Neighborhood, enhancing and connecting public open spaces in the form of establishing placemaking hierarchy. That ranges from the large public open spaces of Harmston Park, McPhee Meadows, as well as public plaza integration at strategic locations, and more intimate interventions such as pocket park, street furnishings, art, urban canopy, and other additions like that. And this also includes identifying events and programming to draw the wider region downtown. And this does include also activating and access to the riverfront with, of course, those flood management goals in mind as well. Supporting, another key highlight is supporting housing development and a friendly pedestrian-oriented environment to accommodate the people who live in the downtown and also support a pleasant public access to local businesses. There's openness to exploring new ideas to get downtown, including new traffic patterns, increased transit use, and possibly even closures of 5th Street to traffic on certain segments of it. And then we also found that it remains important, the message of working together across landowners, business community, service providers, and the arts. And this is important. It is also important to work across our teams at the city on our planning and capital projects and integrating with the new housing legislation. So I'll note that the findings from the SWOT and what we heard report definitely confirm that the vision and specific ideas from the downtown playbook of 2016 that were incorporated into the OCP remain a strong foundation to the development of this plan. So we feel we can confidently move into the refinement and implement stages of this work. Now, turning to the next steps, the second phase includes development of an urban design framework to present to the public. And this framework is organized around each of the districts. And this work is underway through regular staff and consultant workshops. The framework will include many visual concepts as well as policies to support the ideas. And we'll focus on project implementation options. So this includes, again, that overall hierarchy of public open space, greening strategy, circulation, placemaking, areas of cultural value, reimagining vacant properties, and really importantly, the new residential and mixed-use development and massing to accommodate a proportion of the community's 20-year housing needs in the downtown, and then also strategies for public properties as key catalysts to wider downtown vitalization. This phase will include the most intensive form of public communications and engagement in the form of a one-day interactive public open house session, including inspiration from the very popular 2020 OCP Ideas Fair to learn how best to structure that engagement day, as well as dedicated session with the interest holders and government agencies. There's also virtual engagement that will occur at this stage in the public survey, and then and also the Engage Comox Valley page will remain open and is something that people can ask questions of staff on anytime. The event and survey will occur in early April, and council will be presented with these findings in the approximate May timeline. And then the final phase is the refinement of the plan based on all that input. Another survey will happen to confirm plan refinements and any outstanding interest holder engagement. And then the plan will be presented to council, we're imagining late in the summer. So with that overview, I'm happy to take any questions.
Excellent. Thanks for that detailed report. Much appreciated. And looking to see if there's any questions. Councillor Cole Hamilton by a hair.
Okay, they're almost other tie. Thank you, Mayor, and thanks so much for this, Nancy. One of the there are a number of things. Well, obviously, it's a lot that's really interesting here. One of the things that really struck me is was the DCBIA's interest in pedestrianizing areas of downtown. That's obviously something which I've heard people talk about this for, I don't know, a dozen years easily about wouldn't it be great if. And often those are people who didn't have interests or businesses in downtown, but it's interesting to see the BIA itself stepping forward with that. And I know that the playbook had initially looked at Duncan as kind of the pedestrianized space, ideally within downtown. I was just curious, when you were consulting with the BIA folks, what were their thoughts on how pedestrianization might look?
All right, thanks for the question. Through the mayor to Councillor Cole Hamilton. So the ideas are, like I mentioned, some planning principles there, you know, just how do we make the streets more friendly for the public? And that can mean widening the pedestrian pieces, that can mean those street furnishings and things like that. And then there was also, you mentioned yourself, the idea of Fifth Street and revisioning it maybe more for pedestrians, maybe not for cars, or, you know, part of the year exploring that, pilots, etc. Yeah, I think right now what we're gathering is that there was a lot of interest in the topic in general, and really what we have to explore is the tactics that make sense. And so we will continue to pursue this line of inquiry with really specific questions in the engagement.
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear that that's going to be something that's going to get quite a lot of scrutiny and consideration in the next stages. It's certainly an interesting possibility for the city, which people have talked about for a while. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Cole Hamilton. Yeah, when the art gallery opened up, that was one of the plans. That would have been 20 odd years ago. So yeah, hopefully some movement can happen. And we did have the Pulse in the Plaza events this last year as well to try to activate the space a little bit too. So Councillor McCollum.
Yeah, I wanted to raise a similar point. I was also pleasantly surprised to see the emphasis that the pedestrian focus received from the engagement with our DCBIA. And I'm looking forward to seeing kind of how that evolves from this process. In the summary, you know, to me, that whole pedestrian focused design and thought really is connected to bringing people downtown and having, you know, a streetscape that is people focused rather than parking or traffic focused. And so I was surprised that in the bringing people downtown summary in the staff report that it didn't get emphasized there. I think it is pedestrian focused streets is mentioned in the housing and development and local business, but to me, it is very much connected to bringing people downtown. And it is, as you say, it's a large piece of work. It's a different way of approaching how we've envisioned that space for quite some time. And so my question is, some of the things that we heard are pretty straightforward to address. I mean, I believe we did actually set aside some funding for power sources in the location that was highlighted in the report. So some things are really just, you know, addressing an easy action item. Whereas, you know, pedestrianization of areas of downtown, it's like, it's work, you know? So I guess what I'm asking is, how is that going to come forward in the next part of the process? And how are we prioritizing these bits of feedback? Because some feedback is easy to understand and implement, and others is going to take, you know, a different type of process. So I don't know, it's kind of a long-winded question, but.
Yeah, happy for the question, through to Councillor McCollum. So yeah, I think you're recognizing that the plan will create clarity on some quick wins, some projects that can be undertaken right away, and it will also set a vision for some projects that will be very long term, and that's just the nature of a plan like this. I mean, you know, it could be talking, you know, a decade or so or more for some of the very visionary ideas. But the prioritization, staff are very aware of that as well. And we need to come out of this process with something that's very tangible and can find its way into capital plans, et cetera. So the design team, the staff team, we've definitely been getting our head around how to structure consultations so that it can deliver really action-oriented types of projects, and not only just visions, but more like what the playbook did. It set a visionary stage.
Yeah, that's helpful. Yeah, because I found reading the What We Heard report, it's, you know, everything gets equal weight. And in a report where you're just itemizing basically all the things that you heard. And so, yeah, I just wanted some understanding of how we kind of bring that together in the next stage of the process. One thing I noticed, we had wayfinding come through the downtown playbook, and that was one of the things that we've actioned and put resources into. Is that feedback that we've heard again, that there is a desire to see even more types of wayfinding downtown, or is that a recognition that is nice, like a nice amenity that we do have?
Yes, through the mayor to Councillor McCollum. So the wayfinding investments that were made on 4th, 5th, and 6th Street in the branding, those are acknowledged as helpful. We did hear that there's a desire to release brand the downtown in a wider way and not so street specific. So that wayfinding is there now. It's, you know, nothing particular, you know, there's nothing wrong with it. It's helpful. But as we move to future wayfinding, it's important to think more cohesively of the downtown and probably the wider downtown. And then with visionary ideas and new possible destinations to try and focus people towards, you know, we could really imagine Harmston Park in that area really becoming a destination that you want to get to from downtown too. And as the river area develops, that there'll just be a need for more wayfinding. So I think that was the kind of the key messages that were delivered so far on that topic.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thanks for that explanation.
And Mr. Carpet, you had a comment?
Thank you. Through the mayor to Councilor McCollum. This is a wonderful project, which also blends with operational services items that are ongoing. And quite a few of the comments that are in that, what we heard, are things that we've been hearing over the last few years through our liaison with the DCBIA, and just specifically related to the power component. The operational services group is working on something right now. So, but you point out something that's really very interesting, because we kind of have all these aspirational and visionary goals that will add to the urban form and fabric downtown at the same time as ongoing items. So we do need to have a plan, look at that capital long term. It's just that some of these items have been underway for a really long time, and so we're walking a delicate balance at this point. And also the BIA council recalls supporting the expanded boundary through their the expanded requisition, and then their next phase would look at expanded boundary, and then that will also have operational items that are related to that in the future. And contrast to a little bit how this BIA does things relative to other communities and their BIAs is also another matter. And we're in regular contact operationally with DCBIA executive director and through the mayor to their chair, I think is what they call their leader. So just want to, it is a bit delicate, but we are going to hit a point where we will have to be much more focused kind of longer term.
And Ms. Wade.
Yes, through the mayor to council. I just wanted to say that we're at a very interesting time with this phase one, which is really a check-in with the people that have been very much involved to date, and confirming if things change. And as you note, there has been a bit of a change as far as this pedestrian element, which we're aware of, and also the activation of the streets for public art and the cultural heart. And what we have to do in this process, as the city managers has mentioned, is we work closely with our colleagues in operations and fire, because there's a lot of things we have to balance as we move forward in this design to figure out what is feasible from life safety point of view. Also identifying projects that we may need to do, like a downtown lighting plan that will help to support some of the things that we've talked about in the downtown playbook, so that we actually have that facility. And that's a long-term plan, and what are those costs? So the idea is, when we get to the next stage, is actually starting to go through the projects and how do we prioritize those once we get through the next phase two.
Thanks for that. Yeah, when we last met with the BIA, a lot of these things came up, and I remember them saying, why doesn't the downtown have like a theme kind of thing? And it's like, well, this is why we need to do that long range planning. Did you have a follow-up?
No.
But Ms. Wade, your mic came back on. Did you have a follow-up? It's not turning off now. We're going to reboot the whole system in a couple minutes. Sorry, guys. Councilor Moore.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm really interested in the Harmston opportunities. I think that's going to generate a ton of interest. Within the two kind of sections, opportunities and threats, constraints, it does in opportunities it does talk about mixed use zoning. But I guess I'm just wondering what kind of conversations are happening about really kind of boosting that live work kind of opportunity along there. And I don't know if there's, kind of like my old neighborhood in town. And whether there's any models or anything from other communities in terms of incentives for existing commercial properties to embark on that, to help create housing. So I know it's a pretty open question, but I guess the first question is just, has there been more discussion around that live work opportunity there? And are there models in other communities that kind of incentivize that, because there are a lot of existing commercial property owners there? Thanks.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer the question, particularly about the zoning aspect of future potential. the OCP and its designates along McPhee in this area and actually further south down to 17th as a neighborhood center. And in the description of that is the mixed use and of the employment generators that are of an appropriate type that can mix with residences. So I actually don't have the OCP right in front of me, but I believe it's even actually referenced that something like Tin Town for those types of areas. So that is definitely within established vision, land use designation vision for the area. So the key for us will be to work with the community to understand the correct zoning parameters of it. And then out of this will actually come pre-zoning out of it. In terms of the incentives, it's something that's always on staff's radar to understand the best approach. I don't have a specific example in my own mind right now. I don't know if our director might have something to add.
Ms. Wade.
Through the mayor to Council Morton, yes, there's examples of some incentives to do with land use, and we will explore those as we go through this process, and looking at to some of the, leaders that are looking at innovative ways for incentivizing, downtown mixed use, those sorts of things.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Councilor Moore and Councilor McCullough.
Yeah, thanks. Well, to pick up on that topic, we have done a fair bit to improve our incentives around downtown development, which I mean is highlighted in one of the attachments where it's showing all the development underway and recently done. And also we saw in the chamber report earlier today that there was an emphasis around wanting to cut down on processes and red tape. And as you highlighted, pre-zoning an area for development is exactly that. So I think we are moving in the right direction in that regard. A question I had around the engagement report or in the what we heard was there was 2 sessions that listed downtown property owners. And I just was wondering if you could expand on how that was done, like the attendance, how that's defined, and how much engagement we got from that group versus the others, because it's all kind of summarized. I was just curious.
Yeah, through the mayor to Councilor McCollum, the property owners, they are very strategically located within the downtown, so central builders. And then also there's an owner who owns a lot of properties right around Harmston and adjoining the park itself, and actively interested in visions and city's plans for many years. So they were identified to be engaged with in the same frame, same questions posed to them, same amount of time as the other working group members.
Oh. Your mic.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, your mic went off there, but okay. All right. With that, I don't see any further questions. Thanks so much for the detailed report. Really looking forward to seeing this project moving forward, but there is a recommendation. All right, all those in favor? It carries. And why don't we take a break for say 20 minutes and we'll see if we can shake the ghost out of the machine and
Hey, Susie, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
If
Can you
you're
hear
talking,
me?
I can't hear you, so hold on.
Oh, her microphone moved though, so she is talking. Daniel mentioned that
There we go.
But you still can't hear me. Okay, just
I can hear you, but you can't hear
hold
me.
on for a second.
Hello?
Made that mistake.
Okay, try again.
Can you hear me now?
Nope,
Well, something. So
I think that was the kitchen.
Can you hear me?
Okay, Susie, can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
You can hear me, but I can't hear you. Okay. Hold on.
Thought it'd be free comfort. My parents used to put bananas in the. I honestly thought.
That's the sound you're hearing, right? Okay, Susie, can you try speaking again?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Okay, Susie, just hold on. I'm gonna try and see if I can use YouTube. One moment.
No problem.
Hey, Susie, I've confirmed it's not us. It is the regional district system that is malfunctioning. Any audio comes out like a robot goggledy gook. So, unfortunately, that means that you won't be able to present.
Okay.
And I can't hear you if you're talking back to me.
the chat. And I mean, the computer has a Windows update that did happen as well, so
Mhm.
weird that one installed.
Susie, can you hear me?
Hmm?
I'm asking Susie if she can hear me.
It's relatively less, it's cheaper. Yeah. There's more expensive. So.
Susie.
Bonus, and you can also, with a camera actually said. Yeah.
And dates.
Where the person is. What's the picture of my face? Well, it's the same.
I don't know where she went.
It should have twice.
Nope.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No. None of it's not-
Okay, ready?
She's here. I just found her.
Okay.
And it's,
And so it's big.
Oh, hey, can you hear me now?
okay, yes. So hold on 1 second.
Okay.
Good, there's just trying.
Bob, will you turn on the microphone? Mine microphone, please? Sorry, Mayor, Bob.
Okay,
Okay, Susie, try talking.
Can you hear me now?
Hold on.
There is an echo.
If
If I'm. Okay,
Okay,
Susie. I thought that was gonna happen.
If you go into Zoom, you could, change the echo cancellation setting. But then who knows if it goes sideways?
Oh, okay. Okay, Susie, it's not gonna work. We had the feedback like I predicted.
Okay.
Yeah, can we try again with me just phoning you and then maybe putting my phone on speaker?
Sure. You bet.
Okay, I'll call you in a second.
Okay. Bye. Can you hear me? Oh, hold on a sec. I'm trying to get my.
Okay, Susie, go ahead.
Just a sec.
Okay, can you hear me? No.
Oh, we can hear you, but you need to mute us on your side.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Can you?
What we were hearing before, because it wasn't the delay.
It was coming from inside here though, not from her. I heard the feedback on her end, not our end this time.
Yeah, I just muted it now. Can you hear me now?
I think this will work. Okay, we'll call you back once we recess.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, bye.
Okay.
You got your case?
That was Susie.
Perfect. All right, everybody, welcome back to our meeting. Thanks for standing by while we were having a bit of a break there. We're going to go back to item 6.2.1, improving gender and menstrual equity in city operated washrooms. And I'm going to pass it over to our city manager, Jeff Garbett.
Yeah, thank you through the mayor to council. Our director of Recreation, Culture and Community Services is going to speak to this report and the recommendation to council on this matter.
And we are, no, we're just going to stand by for just a second. We know it's going to work, so.
Ready? Okay, I will tell you when you go. Okay, we have Director Saunders on the line in order to introduce this report.
Thank you. Hopefully you can hear me okay?
Absolutely. You're coming through loud and clear.
Great. All right. So through the mayor to council, the report before you outlines the pilot program of providing free menstrual products at the Lewis Center and Link, and also provides recommendations for your consideration regarding the expanded rollout of free menstrual products, as well as improvements to city operated washrooms to improve gender equity. Regarding the free menstrual products, staff are recommending a phased approach whereby the provision of free products, which includes equipment installation, is rolled out to all indoor washrooms in 2025, as well as a pilot of product provision in a few outdoor washrooms. Based on how the outdoor washroom pilot goes, staff would then determine if further expansion of free menstrual products occurs in all outdoor washrooms across the city. While staff were conducting a review of city-operated washrooms, they also conducted an audit of other gender equity supporting amenities such as signage and baby tables, as well as a review of the provision of sharps containers. And from this work, it's clear that there are inconsistent practices related to signage and equipment, and staff are recommending that a standard approach be implemented to ensure that signage is gender inclusive and consistent, and also that baby change tables are readily accessible, and that the provision of sharps containers is expanded. Regarding to move towards functional icon-based signage with the words men's, women's, and universal written out where applicable. This is based on current industry best practices. And additionally, it's recommended that signage include, where possible, a clear statement that gender diverse individuals are welcome. Staff will be reviewing sample signage with key interest holders, such as the Accessibility Committee and Pride Comox Valley, before finalizing and implementing. The expected one-time cost of equipment installation and signage is $50,000 at washrooms. It's expected that the city would incur approximately $7,500 annually to provide free menstrual products across all washrooms, as well as $7,500 annually in equipment repair and maintenance. I'm happy to take any questions.
Fantastic. Thanks very much. And I will just apologize to Ms. O'Connell. I, for some reason, thought you were still on the line. So there's a little bit of discombobulation on my part, getting going a little faster than potentially. But with that, I don't see any questions. Oh, Councillor Hillian.
In the absence of questions, Mr. Mayor, I'm pleased to move the recommendation.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Motion carries. Thanks, Ms. Saunders and Ms. O'Connell, for troubleshooting and getting us back on track. With that, we're going to bounce forward. I believe we're to 9.1 now. Does that make sense? And I'll pass it over to Councillor Moore.
Great, thanks, Mayor. Excuse me. I know everybody has had the resolution that I brought forward in notice of motion regarding the public substance use education and awareness event that I'm hoping to have council support on being kind of an official partner in this event. I do have a couple things background to provide. The Local Leadership United is a provincial project delivered through a partnership between Community Action Initiative and the BC Centre for Disease Control. And it supports local governments, particularly elected officials, with the work that communities are doing in responding to the toxic drug poisoning crisis. So I had been connecting with this resource in online meetings and workshops and happened to run into some staff members at a recent conference. And we had just seen a presentation by Lisa Lapointe, who was the previous provincial chief coroner. And the presentation was really inspiring, as well as being very fact-based, and it clarified a lot of the public messaging around substance use and related policies and practices. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if we could host Lisa Lapointe in the community, along with other speakers and people with lived and living experience. And so I started exploring the possibilities with the local substance use collaborative and community action team. And they were very excited to start exploring this idea. So the goals over the 2 days would be aligned with, excuse me, the recommendations of the Substance Use Collaborative, of which Council has endorsed, as well as within the OCP. So fast forward to today, bringing this forward. And I know that Council would like to probably know a few details about what this actually would be. The great news is a lot of the pre-planning has been accomplished, because I think we're all pretty action-oriented people. And one of the things that we wanted to do was ensure availability of potential guest speakers. So there's been a couple funny things that have gone on, because one of the folks knew that Lisa Lapointe was speaking at a community event in Victoria, so she actually drove there and talked to her directly. And I'm really happy to say that Lisa Lapointe has committed, is really honored to be part of this event. And there's a local theater group that, or sorry, not a local theater group, but on the mainland, that apparently has a great play that ties in with this theme. So the concept is to have actually a business lunch on the April 15th with the theater performance in the evening, and then the following night to have the larger open public event. And I did check in with Tracy of the chamber to confirm that there were no conflicts for business people for those days, which she said at this point there isn't. We really wanted to give a venue to businesses to have dialogue and to enjoy those guest speakers, and then have the larger public event, and then tie in the arts-based piece as well. This all coincides with the sadly the 9th anniversary of the proclamation of the public health emergency. And just lastly, the speakers that have confirmed that they could attend are Lisa Lapointe, Leslie McBain of Mum Stop the Harm, another really great speaker, Dr. Charmaine Enns, Paul Sturr, and Patty Sturr locally, Corey Ranger, DJ Larkin of the Canadian Drug Policy Coalition, who is also very excited to come and be here, and Greg Heminger with the Toolkit project, which is a project for liaising with people in the trades, because of the high number of particularly young men in the trades who have been impacted by this crisis. So there's some other speakers as well. Most of the speakers have very generously requested assistance only with travel and accommodation costs. I think it's a phenomenal opportunity to get some really high profile speakers for very little cost. But of course, I am asking my resolution for $7,500 to augment the $10,000 that the Community Action Initiative has committed, which is amazing. And of course, we will be engaging with Comox First Nation, and hoping that they'll be able to participate to the capacity that they can, and to involve elders as well. So just wanted to give more details to show that there is kind of a fleshed out plan, and hoping for your support. Thank you. Oh, sorry.
You can move it, and you may want to ask if there's any questions.
And I won't
Keep your mic
speak
on.
to it because I did.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All
Sorry
right.
about that, folks.
No. Thanks for the explanation. It's been moved and seconded. I don't see any questions. The two questions, well, really only one question does have the thing about writing to the town of Comox, Village of Cumberland, and the CBRD. And you had mentioned Comox First Nation. I just wondered if that was something that is implied or was happening separately, because I heard you speak about
Yeah,
it.
no, I mean, I think it would be helpful if, I'm asking for a little bit of staff support, but it certainly would be very minimal. That might be something that would be helpful to, just to invite participation, not to ask them for money, but to invite participation. That would be probably very helpful. Thanks.
Okay, and I would expect that'd be a friendly kind of thing. We wouldn't have to change the.
And there is a
motion.
couple venue things that staff could potentially help with.
All right.
Thanks.
Well, I just want to take a moment just to thank Councillor Morin for all the work that she's done in putting this together and finding the funding from Local Leaders United and putting together. It's going to be a remarkable event. So look forward to it, and just thank you for the time that you put into this to make it happen.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? And motion carries, and we'll move on to bylaws. 10.1.1 fees and charges amendment bylaw 3171 for solid waste. And I'll pass it over to Chris Thompson. I think you're going to approach the podium. I'll get that microphone on for you. In a perfect world.
Tonight we'll be making a resolution that council give first, second, and third readings to fees and charges amendment bylaw number 3171, 2025 for solid waste. Just three minor changes to kind of clean up the fees and charges after a year of service. We've come to the conclusion that we needed to add some fees for full transparency and just tidy up the recycling cart charges.
All right. So seeing no questions or comments, if somebody would like to move the recommendation. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And motion carries. And we move on to 10.2.1 fees and charges amendment bylaw 3167, 2025. Somebody like to move that? Excellent. It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And the motion carries. And 10.2.2 water service frontage tax amendment bylaw 3168. Excellent. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Motion carries. And 10.2.3 fees and charge amendment bylaw 3169 for sewer. And I don't see any questions or comments. So all those in favor? And motion carries. Mr. Garbutt.
Thank you. Through the mayor to council. These were these were bylaws in support of our financial planning program that council considered at our last meeting. Our next meeting will include the financial plan as well as a response to council's direction around the sewer frontage. So those are other bylaws there, just to remind council where we're at.
Thanks very much for that. Much appreciated. Getting into council reports, Councillor McCollum. Councillor Cole Hamilton, Councillor Hillian, Councillor Morin, and I already talked about my business walk, so we'll move right into our in-camera resolution. All those in favor? Motion carries, and we are adjourned.